Welcome to our special coverage on the very critical escalation in the conflicts in Gaza and Lebanon. And as violence intensifies and US policy under Trump is increasingly unpredictable, we'll be examining the impact on the civilians and the regional stability. So stay tuned for our insights on these critical developments.
المستهدفين هن مدنيين. وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
The Israeli occupation army has detonated explosives planted inside houses in 3 border villages that have been battered by the war. The official Lebanese national news agency said that the Israeli occupation army has been carrying out a bombing campaign inside the villages of Yaroun, Al-Taroun and Maroun Ras in the Bint Jbil area with the aim of destroying residential homes there. Israeli strikes have damaged roads near the Masna border crossing in Lebanon's eastern Beqa valley, hindering the journey of the Lebanese people seeking refuge in Syria. Over the past month, the main road to the Masna border crossing has been bombed twice, creating a large crater less than 3 kilometers from the Syrian border. Displaced Lebanese civilians were spotted carrying their belongings across a crater near the border. Vehicles have emerged in Israel's northern city of Haifa following Hezbollah's rocket fire. The occupation military said 40 rockets crossed into Israel's north from Lebanon following the rocket sirens that sounded in the area of Nahariya, Acre, and Haifa's Bayside suburbs. Israeli media have reported that 10 rockets were launched from Lebanon, targeting the city of Nahariya and western Galilee. In a separate incident, the media also reported that 5 additional rockets were fired towards the Galilee Panhandle region, with some landing in open areas. Additionally, the occupation army reported that 10 rockets were detected in the latest barrage targeting the Haifa and Nazariya areas, with some intercepted. US President Joe Biden is making one final push to broker peace in the Middle East, focusing on a ceasefire and 2-state solution. But regional tensions and skepticism raise doubts about this success.
US President Joe Biden has geared up for one last attempt to broker peace in the Middle East, aiming to address the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict and broader regional instability. However, as the conflict escalates with no signs of abating, questions arise over whether Biden's diplomatic efforts will succeed. The US president plans to leverage his remaining influence to urge both Israeli and Palestinian leaders to reach a compromise, focusing on humanitarian relief, a ceasefire, and ultimately a 2-state solution. Despite Biden's push for peace, many doubt the effectiveness of this final diplomatic effort, especially after the Israeli occupation defense ministry signed a landmark deal to acquire 25 next-generation F-15 fighter jets from the United States. And with Donald Trump's election for a second non-consecutive term, senior U.S. officials who have spent months crisscrossing the Middle East for peace negotiations are now likely to face counterparts reluctant to take big steps, preferring instead to wait for his inauguration in January. Broader regional tensions, including Iran's involvement and the shifting dynamics within Arab states, complicate the situation further. This push for peace comes at a time of significant political and military challenges for Biden, both domestically and internationally. His administration faces criticism for its handling of the conflict, with some questioning whether any peace plan could be implemented before his term ends.
Thank you.
While Biden's final peace push may be seen as a last-ditch effort to stabilize the region, the prospects of its success remain uncertain.
Well, we're joined now from Beirut by Dr. Najat Saliba, a distinguished member of the Lebanese parliament. Dr. Saliba, good evening to you.
Good evening to you and to your listeners. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being with us. And Dr. Saliba, what is the situation in Lebanon at the main time, particularly after the recent Israeli escalation?
Yes, indeed. In the past 2 days, there have been lots of strikes in the south as well as in Beirut. Not last night, but the night before. At the same time, we hear that there was lots of strikes in Baalbek and the Bekaa. All of this to say that the Israeli invasion has not stopped, and it continues to create lots of massacres and at the same time lots of destructions in villages that are already empty, completely empty from their residents and inhabitants. A lot of people, or most people, have fled those villages, and there is no reason and no justification for this massive destructions that we see happening from by the hands of Israel, and just watching without even condemning this massive destruction of the villages of Lebanon.
From your point of view, Dr. Saliba, what could be the primary objectives of the Israeli military aggression in Lebanon?
Well, they already, when they started in Gaza, they wanted to free the hostages. They had so many chances to free the hostages, but they continued in their massacres and genocides and destruction with no end in sight for the war. They have done the same for Lebanon. They claimed that they wanted to be a small incursion. This is what they said and how they described it at the beginning. And then we see that this incursion has become an invasion with a complete destruction of tens of villages in the south that are not, again, justifiable in any way. So all the propaganda that Israel puts to the word so that they believe or they justify for them the genocides and the mass destruction are not basically what they are doing on the ground. So what they claim is one thing, but what is happening on the ground is a totally different thing. Let me say one thing. There have been violences and wars for 76 years already since the Palestinian cause has started. Up until now, with those crimes and with those wars and with this violence, the peace has not come. Violence cannot create peace. And without really going into a diplomatic solution with discussions and just solution for the Palestinians as well as the Israeli and the Lebanese people, I don't think we want to see peace in this part of the world. Violence is not the answer. Violence has not given the answer to any of these countries. And this is extremely important. We cannot continue with genocides because genocides is going to get people more raged and it's going to create more killing, not only in this part of the world, in all the parts of the world, all across the globe. And we saw what happened today in Denmark. I mean, those atrocities from both sides cannot lead to solution. Israel has to understand that they cannot implement an unjust solution by force.
Indeed. Dr. Saliba, as a member of the Lebanese parliament, how do you how is the Lebanese parliament responding to this very critical crisis, and what measures should we be expecting or are you discussing so as to address this critical situation Lebanon is in?
Thank you for this question. As you well know, that Lebanon or the parliament is divided into two main camps. One main group is calling for reinstating the state and going forward with electing a president even before the ceasefire. And there is no need at all to link the election of the president with the ceasefire. This is as per the constitution. Lebanese parliamentarians have to convene immediately and work on electing the president in one session consecutively until the president is elected. However, part of the parliament is already an Iranian proxy, and they are doing what Iranian is implementing for them to do. Those people are stopping the election. They are boycotting or breaking the quorum in the sessions for election, and those people are serving the Iranian interest and putting the Iranian benefits and interest over the benefits of the country. We call upon all members of the parliament to go to the parliament today before tomorrow and convene with an open session until a president is elected. Without really safeguarding the state and its institutions, we cannot go to the outside community and talk about peace and discuss peace or any diplomatic solution. So this is from one hand. But from the other hand, we feel that we have a major threat to the monuments and to the culture that we have cherished and we have been really leading in this part of the world of really safeguarding the monuments and the cultural heritage, the world heritage that we have on this land. This world heritage is not only for the Lebanese people, it's for the humanity at large. And we feel that there is a high risk for Baalbek, Tyre, and Sidon, who are, those places that are listed at the UNESCO on the UNESCO World Heritage list,
Right.
as sites that need to be safeguarded. And so what we did, 105 parliamentarians gathered together, wrote a letter to the Director General of UNESCO, asking the UNESCO to do its utmost best to protecting this world heritage. And in fact, they have responded, and they are calling on the 18th of November to have an extraordinary session to look into this request, thankfully.
Now, with the return of Donald Trump to the White House, what kind of impact should we be expecting on the US policy towards Lebanon, and what do you in Lebanon expect?
It's very, very important that we Lebanese decide on how to move forward and what our foreign policies should be. But having said that, we know that Biden has supported Israel and has given unconditionally munitions to Israel to bombard and kill people in Gaza and Lebanon. So anything that comes after that is a relief. We understand that the administration of Trump and Trump himself has not been in favor of war. And we do hope that the promises that he gave to end the war in Gaza and Lebanon are fulfilled as fast as it is possible. This is extremely important to us. We do hope that with this new administration, at least the munitions to Israel would be reduced, and then the killing would be stopped as fast as it can be done.
Hopefully. Thank you so much, Dr. Saliba, for sharing your perspective and shedding light on the severe impact of the current conflict in Lebanon. And moving on to the latest developments in Gaza. Several civilians have been killed and others have been injured in the Israeli shelling of different areas in the war-torn Gaza Strip. Israel Navy boats shelled the coast of Rafah city in southern Gaza, killing one fisherman and injuring 3 others. The occupation warplanes targeted a house in the vicinity of the Daraj clinic in the center of the strip, killing 8 civilians and injuring others. 2 civilians were also killed and others were injured in the occupation's shelling targeting a tent for displaced people in Qnews, south of the strip. Israel has announced expanding its offensive operations in northern Gaza. Beit Lahia, 4 civilians were killed and several others were injured in an Israeli shelling of Beit Lahia north of the Gaza Strip. Thousands of victims remain missing, either buried under the rubble or scattered on the roads, as rescue teams face tremendous difficulties in reaching them due to the continued Israeli attacks and the massive amount of debris. Six civilians have been killed and others have been injured in Israeli airstrikes targeting the Nusayrat refugee camp in the center of the Gaza Strip. Several civilians were also injured in the occupation's shelling of Halima al-Saraya school in Jabalia north of the Strip. Palestinian death toll has surged to 43,508, the majority of whom are children and women, and 102,684 others have been wounded. The Israeli occupation army committed 3 massacres against families in the Gaza Strip over the past 24 hours, resulting in the killing of 39 civilians and the injury of 123 others, according to medical sources. Clashes have broken out outside the Amsterdam Central Station, wounding 20 Israeli officers, wounding those, and 62 officers arrested 62 people in Netherlands capital, and 5 people were taken to the hospital following the violence as the 2 sides faced each other at the Johan Cruyff Arena. The incident came after a European League soccer match between their team and the local Amsterdam team, Ajax. However, there had also been clashes between Israeli fans and locals before the game. We're joined by Major General Habis al-Sharouf, Director of the Palestinian National Security Institute in Ramallah. Good evening to you, sir. Major General al-Sharouf, could you provide us with an overview of the current situation in Gaza amidst the ongoing Israeli military campaign?
I believe that Netanyahu now is moving in the same plan, which is the plan of the generals in the north of Gaza Strip. This plan of the generals of Israel is aiming to get the Palestinians to leave the Gaza Strip from the north to the south, and those who refuse to go to the south would be subjected to starvation and killing. Second, their goal is to separate the North Gaza from the south of Gaza, and thus they can control the main roads in Gaza Strip, in addition to pressuring the Hamas leaders so as to get them to approve the Israeli suggestions as laid. And Netanyahu also wants to establish a status quo, as he said, of absolute victory to Israel, and he hopes to release any of the captives who are held by Hamas. And if this happens, he would say, I have made a victory. So the Netanyahu victories is the killing and displacement. He considers this his own victory, and Netanyahu now is hoping for an absolute victory. But till now, the objectives that he has set since the beginning of the war till now, the hostages are still there. The people of the north the people of the north of Israel did not go back to their homes, and is expanding the scope of war so as to achieve certain partisan goals, and so as to show that Israel is the country that is defying terrorism, and it is the country that is actually fighting the axis of evil that is headed by Iran. And that's why Netanyahu wants to achieve his own objectives against the other parties by the displacement of the Palestinians and getting the greater Israel, as he claims.
Now, General Sharoof, how are the recent developments in Lebanon influencing the dynamics of the war on Gaza?
In Lebanon, there has been a link between the war in Lebanon and the war in Gaza. That's a basic thing, and therefore, consequently, in Lebanon, the bombardment of Israel still continues. It continues all the time, and therefore, till now, the Israeli settlers did not go back to their areas in the north of Israel, but they are still fleeing from the north to the south, and this is a great burden and pressure on the Israeli government. So Netanyahu wants from Hezbollah to be pushed back to the Litani River, and he wants the area between the Blue Line and the Litani totally disarmed, and to have international forces in them, and to get the return of the Lebanese army to this area. And the more crucial point for this whole thing is to allow the Israeli army to interfere openly, one way or the other, into the Lebanese territories, so as Lebanon wouldn't have sovereignty over these areas when Israel wants to intervene. This is the occupation army. This is what Netanyahu wants from Lebanon, but Lebanese cannot approve this, and the Lebanese are going to approve the resolution 1701, though Israel wants to amend that resolution.
Yes,
so the war still continues.
Yes, General Sharoof, briefly, I would like to ask you the return of Donald Trump into the scene and to the White House presidency. How do you foresee any changes in the American foreign policy that would really reflect on the Palestinian cause?
I believe that the two parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they have the same policies on the Middle East, though there is a difference in tactics. But for Trump has got a little bit a different policy, and he wants to implement his own deal of the century, and he wants to implement the Abrahamic peace, and he has tried that, but he didn't succeed in this when he was in power. So maybe Trump believes in deals, and maybe he wants to have a deal with Israel or with some countries, but this will all be on the expense of the Palestinian people. I don't believe that Trump is fully supportive to Israel, but so far the regional countries and the Arab countries are against normalization with Israel unless a Palestinian state is established and self-determination is allowed to Palestinians. Therefore, Trump, I believe that he will be forcing some parties to a ceasefire, and all of this will be for the benefit of Israel in the end.
General Al-Sharoof, imposing issues and imposing things did not really bring effect or the effective results that he wanted in his first term. General Sharouf, we thank you so much for being with us and for your insights here. And that brings us to the end of our special coverage. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EGY to stay informed for real-time updates. Connect with us on the UMS digital platform. Watch it. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.